Shabbos, Daf Chaf Aleph through Chaf Zayin. On Daf Chaf Aleph, the Gemara says that psilos ushpanim, the various types of wicks and oils that you're not allowed to use on Shabbos because they don't burn well and we're afraid that you'll adjust the ner, you're allowed to use for Ner Chanukah, whether Chanukah falls on Shabbos or during the week. Why? Because kavsa in zakukla, if the Ner Chanukah goes out, you don't have to relight it. And also, v'aslu shtamish la'ora, you're not allowed to use the Ner Chanukah for your personal purpose. Why not? Why are you not allowed to use the Ner Chanukah for your personal purposes? Two reasons the post can bring, both because we want to make it clear that the Ner Chanukah is there for the mitzvah and not for your personal use, so you're not going to use it, so everyone will know it's just for the mitzvah. Also, because the Ner Chanukah is a reminder of the nace that happened with the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash, of the temple. That one was not used at all for personal purposes, it was just part of the temple service. So here too, we treat the menorah the same way. This is how we paskin in Shulchan Aruch. You're allowed to use any of the various oils and wicks for Chanukah. However, the post can bring mitzvah min hamuvchar. The ideal kind of wick you should use is one made from cotton or from linen, from flax, presumably because that burns the best. With regard to the oil, the Rama says that the ideal oil is shemen zayis, is olive oil. If you don't have shemen zayis, then you should use whatever oil burns best. Why is olive oil preferable? Because first of all, because it burns well. Also, the post can bring because the nace of Chanukah, the miracle of the oil, occurred with olive oil, which is what they used in the menorah of the temple. As we'll see, that second reason doesn't apply with regard to the Ner Shabbos. First reason perhaps does. We'll discuss later what the halacha is with regard to Shabbos, whether olive oil is preferable. The halacha is that kavsein zakukla, the Gemara says we paskin that if the Ner Chanukah goes out, you don't have to relight it. However, we do paskin that if you lit it in a place where it can't burn, it was too windy and it was inevitable that it would go out, or if you didn't put in enough oil, you can't say, well, it went out, I don't have to relight it. You didn't light it properly. You didn't light it with enough oil, or you didn't light it in a location where it was capable of burning for the requisite amount of time. Then you do have to relight it. However, you don't make a new bracha. The Mishnah Berurah brings from the Achronim, you don't make the bracha again. Also, the Mishnah Berurah says if you see that when you lit it, it's not burning well, the fire didn't really catch, and it's going to go out, again, then you're not yotze. That's not kavsein zakukla. That's you didn't properly light it, and then you do have to light it again. Certainly, even though kavsein zakukla, you certainly have to relight it. The Shulchan Aruch rules that even on erev Shabbos, we always light before nightfall on erev Shabbos. You can't light Ner Chanukah on Shabbos. So even if you lit it when it was still day, as you have to light on erev Shabbos, and it went out, still we say kavsein zakukla. You don't have to relight it. Similarly, also the Shulchan Aruch says if a person was adjusting the ner to make it burn better and he accidentally blew it out, put it out, even though he did it actively, he actively extinguished the ner, it doesn't matter, that's still kavsein zakukla. With regard to erev Shabbos, the reason you don't have to relight it, even though it's a great chiddush, because it's not even the night of Chanukah yet, it's still the day before, the previous day of Chanukah or erev Chanukah, you still yotze because that's when you're supposed to light. And you made a bracha on it, and the mitzvah began, and that's why you don't have to relight it. Mishnah Berurah brings, the Taz disagrees. The Taz says that if it went out on erev Shabbos before nightfall, you do have to relight it, however, without a bracha. The Ramah brings, a person can be machmer, a person wants to be stringent and relight it anyway, then he can, but he shouldn't make a bracha. The Achronim say you should do that. If your Ner Chanukah went out, even if you lit it properly, and there was enough oil, and there wasn't wind, for some reason it went out, still it is proper to relight it. Certainly, if it happened before nightfall, like an erev Shabbos, certainly you should relight it, and you don't make a bracha, but you should relight it if it went out within the share, within the minimum amount of time, as we're going to discuss soon. The Gemara says, when is Ner Chanukah lit? The mitzvah is ideally mishatishka achama, sunset, until tichla regel min hashuk, until pedestrian traffic has ceased from the marketplace, from the street. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? What's the significance of this time span? My lav, the kavsa hadar madlik, that if it went out within this window, you have to relight it. The Gemara says, no, that we say kavsa ein zakukla, so what this means is two other possibilities. Either the lo adlik madlik, a person should light it shkia, but if he hasn't lit and it's still before the time of tichla regel min hashuk, he can still light up to that time. Inamni, another pshat is l'shiyura, you have to put enough oil that the Ner Chanukah can burn until the end of the window of tichla regel min hashuk. It's not clear how we paskin, which of these two terutzim of the Gemara is ikar. Do you need enough oil? Do you have to continue lighting until that time, and not after that time? Tosfos brings an opinion that according to one approach in the Gemara, if you light after that window, if you light after Tichla Regel Min Hashuk, you miss the mitzvah, you're not Yotzei. He says you still should light after that because there are two teretz in the Gemara. It's not so clear which one is lahalacha. He also brings the opinion of the Ri, another one of the Balei Tosfos, that today it doesn't really matter when you light because today we light inside. We'll discuss that later, not outside. So today the Iker Persumei Nisa, the publicization of the nace is for the people in the household, not for the people outside. So Tichla Regel is no longer relevant. Lahalacha we paskin lechatchila, like both approaches of the Gemara. Kav saying Zaka Club, we paskin both other approaches of the Gemara that A, the window of Shkia until Tichla Regel is that you definitely should light before Tichla Regel. You shouldn't wait till after Tichla Regel. And B, you should put enough oil in to burn until that time. However, if a person didn't light before that time, that if he missed that time, then he should still light afterward because again there are some opinions that say that there are some opinions that say that you can light later. When exactly is Shkia? What does Shkia mean in this context? So there are at least three opinions. Some say Shkia means Tzeis HaKochavim, the end of Shkia, the end of the Ben Hashmashas period, where it's Vadei nightfall, whatever Tzeis HaKochavim is, whether it's 15 minutes, 72 minutes. Some say it is Tchila Shkia, the beginning of Shkia. What beginning of Shkia means is also a dispute. Some say the Mishnah Berurah brings the beginning of Shkia. Some Rishonim say that, but they mean the beginning of the second Shkia, which is only about 15 minutes or so before Tzeis HaKochavim, which is still pretty late. It's a while after what we normally call Shkia. And others say it means Tchila Shkia. Others understand, based on the Rambam, the Bir Halacha brings, that it means Tchila Shkia, that you should light at the beginning of Shkia. So there are a variety of opinions about when the ideal time to light is. The Nitei Gavriel summarizes all the opinions. He comes up with about 8 different opinions. He says, some say Tchila Shkia, beginning of what we call Shkia. That was the minhag of the Brisker Rav. That was the minhag of communities in Lithuania. Some say quarter of an hour after Shkia, 15 minutes after Shkia. Some say 18 minutes after Shkia. Some say 25 minutes after Shkia. Some say 20 minutes after Shkia. Some say 10 minutes after Shkia. There are all kinds of opinions, and there are all kinds of different minhagim about when it should actually be lit. If a person, as we said before, a person missed Shkia, and even if he missed Tichla Regel, that a person should light until Tichla Regel Min Hashuk, and that until then, which is a half hour after that's when at least lechatchila that's still the Iker's Zman Hadlaka. The real lechatchila is to light at the beginning of Shkia, whatever that is. If you miss that, you can still light until Tichla Regel Min Hashuk, and you should put in that much oil. If you put in more oil than that, you can put it out after it burned that period of time. The implication is that if the period of Tichla Regel, which is a half hour, the poskim say, is if it's a half hour, ideally you light at the beginning of that period. If you lit 15 minutes in, the mashmos is you only have to put in 15 minutes of oil. We don't do that. That was according to the Talmudic rule that there was really no mitzvah after Tichla Regel. But today, again, we said the Ikar Persumei Nisa, the Ikar point of the menorah is internally for the members of the household. You should always put in half an hour, and even if you miss Tichla Regel entirely, we said you light anyway, even if you miss Tichla Regel. Even after Tichla Regel, you always put in the minimum share of oil, which is a half hour. And Erev Shabbos poskim say you put in more because you're lighting early and you want it to burn until the period of Tichla Regel. So you always put in at least Tichla Regel. Erev Shabbos you put in more. And Motzei Shabbos, where you're lighting late, that's where you put in the smallest amount, just the share of Tichla Regel. On a regular day, assuming you light a little bit before, if you're not lighting at Tzeis HaKochavim, then you might want to put in a little bit more, so it should burn a half hour after Tzeis, plus the time it takes to get from now until Tzeis. So the Rama brings, some say B'zman Hazeh, you don't have to worry, like Tosfos said about Tichla Regel, because the Hadlaka is really for the members of the household. But still, it's better even today to be makbid, because according to some opinions, that even today, first of all, even today there is a benefit of pursuing Nisa, because people in the public can see it. And again, this is all lechatchila, but the evidence if a person missed the point of Tichla Regel, you light the whole night, because there's another opinion in the Gemara that says you can light even after Tichla Regel, apparently. You can light all night until daybreak the next day, until Amud HaShachar, that's with a bracha. But you're doing that because people in your house are awake. If nobody's awake, you cannot make a bracha. However, the Mishnah Berurah recommends that if the people in your house are sleeping and you want to light with a bracha, you should wake them. I believe I heard people wonder about that. Is it really appropriate to Gezel Shena, to wake somebody else up to do the mitzvah? Maybe you assume they would want to participate in the mitzvah, but that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Tichla Regel in the time of the Talmud was a half hour after Shkia, after whatever time Shkia is. There's some question about when it is today. Rosh Sternbach discusses it in his Moadim Uzmanim and Shuvas Vanagos. He says today's stores close about 7, so he's very makbid, certainly in Eretz Yisrael where they light outside, and the Persumei Nisa is like it was in the time of the Talmud for the people of the street. Certainly he says you should put enough oil in so that it burns a half hour after 7 until 7:30. Now the Mishnah Berurah says that if you put in more oil than the share, more oil than Tichla Regel, there's no mitzvah. Long candles is a mitzvah because long candles is a heater, they look nice, but more oil is not a mitzvah. He's no mitzvah at all. He says, ain't shum mitzvah, there's no mitzvah at all. Rav Sternbach says that there were people in Yerushalayim, and there are people who do this all over, who put in a lot of oil in their menorah, who put in, it burns until midnight. It's not Meikra Din, he says, Tichla Regel is clearly earlier, but it's a hitter, he says, that people do, there are still some people in the street. Tichla Regel means most people, generally people are out of the street, but some people are in the street, so it's still some level of Persumei Nisa. Even though the Mishnah Berurah says that there's no mitzvah, Rav Sternbach says that if people are still around, Brisker Rav used to keep his menorah burning very late, which Rav Sternbach says was the same thing. There were people in his environment, in his house, who were still around. People came to him, and therefore there still is some type of Persumei Nisa, well beyond the minimum share, because there are some people around who'll see it. The Gemara brings the famous 3 levels of Mahadran and Chanukah. The basic mitzvah is one nair per household per night. Mahadran light 1 nair for every member of the household. Mahadran mina mahadran. B'Shamim Beis Hillel, whether you go up or down, we pass like Beis Hillel, that you go up, one nair on the first night, 2 on the second, 3 on the third. Tosfos says that when you do that, you should not do the middle level of Mahadran. You should only light one menorah per household, 1 nair on the first night, 1 on the second, not as we do, 1 on the first night for every member of the household, 2 on the second night for every member of the household, because that would lead to confusion, Tosfos says, because then you wouldn't be able to know, you wouldn't be able to know what night it is. If on the third night of Hanukkah you're going to have 2 people in the house, you light 6 nairs, people are not going to realize that it's the third night of Hanukkah. They're going to say you have 6 people in the house, so it's going to get confusing. So therefore, you should only do the Mosif HaHolech, and you should the 1 more per night. You should not do 1 for each member of the household. Rambam says no. Rambam says that the Mahadran has both Hidurim, that you light 1 per member of the household, and 1 additional one each night. Ner l'chol echad b'layla rishon, Mosif HaHolech b'chol layla ner echad, and that's l'chol echad. That's for everyone in the household. Rambam is mashma that 1 person lights for every member of the household. So on the 8th night, if there are 5 people, then 1 person lights 40 neiros, but the way the Ramah brings this down is that every member of the household lights, which is what we do, every member of the household lights 1 nair for every night of Hanukkah. Ashkenazim here follow the Ramah, follow the Rambam, who is a Sfardi. Sfardim, the Shulchan Aruch at least, I'm not sure what Sfardi practice is, but the Mechaber himself, the Shulchan Aruch, who is a Sfardi, goes like Tosfos that you should not light more than 1 menorah per household if you want to do Mahadran and Mahadran. The Ramah adds that our minhag is to light multiple nairos per person and per night. However, to avoid Tosfos' concern that it won't be clear what night it is, you shouldn't put them all in the same place. You should put them in separate places, which is what we do. We try to put them in separate places. So if you have 3 people in the household and it's the second night of Hanukkah, you have 2, 2, and 2. People can realize it's the second night of Hanukkah, there are 3 people in the household. You do that by putting the menorah separately. It gets crowded. Sometimes you have a bunch of menorahs, or it's the 8th night of Hanukkah, and you have narrow windows, so it can get a little tricky sometimes, but ideally one should have the menorah separately so you can see, so it's not just a jumble of nairos, you can realize how many there are per member of the household. The Gemara says, where do you put your menorah? The Brisa says, you put it in the doorway outside so people in the public can see it. If you were in an attic, you don't have a doorway, 2nd floor, you don't have a doorway facing the street, you put it in your window that faces the street. B'shas sakana, when it was dangerous, you put it inside. And that's how the later poskim from the Rishonim and on, they've always assumed that today, we've said several times already in this talk, that the Ikar Persumei Nisa, the primary Persumei Nisa today is for the members of the household, because today we follow the Shas Lakana, we light inside. And this was the minhag for thousands of years. The Rishonim all said that they used to light inside. In the 20th century, 19th century, the 20th century, poskim began to wonder about this. They didn't think it was so dangerous in their time, even back in Europe, say in Eretz Yisrael. Many of them didn't think it was that dangerous. They asked, why are we still lighting inside? Indeed, in Eretz Yisrael, for better part of a century, many in Eretz Yisrael do light outside, following the logic. There's no sakana. And poskim have struggled with the idea that even in Eretz Yisrael, many people still light inside. And certainly in Chutz La'aretz, most people light outside, even in situations where it's not deemed to be a sakana. Poskim struggle to understand why that is. The Gemara seems to say it's only because of sakana. Some people say that Chazal changed the takana. They said permanently because the sakana, now we're changing it. Now it doesn't matter if the sakana still remains. The takana was permanently moved to inside. Some say there's always some element of sakana. It can antagonize people. We don't know what will happen if we provoke our unfriendly neighbors sometimes. Some said it was because the weather in Europe was so bad. It was windy and rainy, so it's difficult to light a menorah outside. Some said, well, if it's difficult, find a solution. Even in Eretz Yisrael, it can be windy. The people in Eretz Yisrael, they use boxes. They use glass boxes to cover the menorah. It's not that expensive. It's not that hard to fashion. Suppose we don't have an entirely clear resolution of why we light inside, certainly in Chutz La'aretz, even many in Eretz Yisrael. But L'maisa, the minhag is in Chutz La'aretz, almost everyone lights inside. In Eretz Yisrael, there are various minhagim. Some light inside, some light outside. It was a great debate among Israeli poskim, Rav Yashiv, Rav Ehrenberg, and many others about whether one should light outside or inside in Eretz Yisrael. The Daf Shabbos, the Gemara says the Ner Chanukah should be put. We already said it should be put al Pesach Beso by the door. It should be put within a tefach of the door, a few inches of the door. And which side of the door, the Gemara brings a dispute. We paskin that it should be on the left of the doorway, so you should have the mezuzah on the right when you enter, and the Ner Chanukah on the left. We paskin this way in Shulchan Aruch that it should be in the doorway and it should be on the left side of the doorway. And Ramah comes in again. With Manazeh, we light inside. Then it's not for the Rishus Rabbim anyway, so you don't have to put it in the doorway at all, because that was meant primarily to show it was your menorah. People in the street should see it's your menorah next to your house, next to your door. Today we don't have that. However, even today, if a person has a choice of where to put his menorah, he should put it near the door because of the other considerations. So when you walk through the door, you should have a mitzvah on both sides, mezuzah on the right and the menorah on the left. So there are a couple of exceptions to that. But first of all, if you have many people, again, like we said before, it can get crowded. So if there are going to be too many people lighting menorahs in the same place and it won't be clear what night of Hanukkah it is, then it's better to give up the doorway for at least some of the people and light somewhere else. This happens in Eretz Yisrael too. People light outside the door. You have an apartment building, you have a bunch of families, they're all trying to light at the doorway. If it's not enough room, somebody has to give up the doorway. Also, the Mishnah Berurah says if you have an option of a window, if you have a window that faces the street, then the benefit of having at least some Pirsumei Nisa for the street is more important than lighting in the doorway and having the benefit of walking in between two mitzvahs. The Gemara goes on. The Gemara talks about how you shouldn't move the menorah. You shouldn't light it in a place that's the wrong place and move it to the right place. You shouldn't even light it in one place and move it to it. And you shouldn't light it while you're holding it and move it. Mishnah Berurah brings you shouldn't even light it in one place and then move it to another place, even if both places were kosher. The Gemara brings two issues with moving it around. One of them is what the Gemara talks about Halachos and mitzvah, that where you light it, that is the mitzvah, and if you lit it in the wrong place, you're not yotzei. Even if we paskin that you don't say Halachos and mitzvah, there's another concern. People are going to say L'tzarcha hu denakit la, that you're moving it for your own purposes, not for the mitzvah. You need more light. You're moving it somewhere else because that's what you do with your own light. You move it to where you need it. Because of that concern, some poskim say that you shouldn't even move it around from place to place where they're both legitimate places for the menorah, because that can lead people to say that it's L'tzarcha. So it's better not to move the menorah at all. Obviously, if it's dangerous, it's going to cause a fire, you can move it, but without a good reason, certainly, ideally, you should not move the menorah once it has been lit. The Gemara in Daf Kav Gimel says that a woman lights Ner Chanukah. Why? Women are chayavas in Ner Chanukah. Women are obligated. Why? Afein hayabosu anes. They were involved in the miracle of Chanukah. What does it mean they were involved? So there are two other Gemaras in Shas that also make the same point, that women are obligated in a certain mitzvah because they were involved in the Nes. One of them is Megillah and Purim, Afin Hayabosu Anes. The other one is Pesach, Arba Kosos. Women are obligated to drink the 4 cups on Pesach, Afin Hayabosu Anes. In all these 3 cases, there is a dispute among the Rishonim. What does it mean they were involved in the Nes? Some say as victims, some say as heroes. Some say it means that the salvation of the people from the peril in which they found themselves, from the distress in which they found themselves, applied to both men and women, maybe even especially women. When it comes to Purim, the genocide would have happened to all the Jews. When it comes to Chanukah, they were all part of the Gzeira, especially on them, the rite of the first night. When Pesach, they were all enslaved in Mitzrayim. Some say on the contrary, they were the heroines of all of them. Purim, Queen Esther was the heroine of Purim. The Chanukah involved the Nes of Judith, cutting off the head of the Roman enemy, cutting off the head of the Greek enemy. Pesach, it was the merit of the righteous women that were saved. Some say it was they were the victims and they were saved as part of the Nes. Some say they were the heroines. When it comes to Chanukah, so Afnei V'Azu Nes, they should light. Post can bring at least two carve-outs for that. Everyone agrees a woman is by herself, a single woman has to light Ner Chanukah. A woman who's part of a larger household, even if you're practicing Mahadran, and Mahadran, that all the members in the household light, some say women don't light. The Mishmur brings, some posts can say, because Ishto Kegufo, that she's together with her husband, so one can be lit for the couple is two hearts beating as one, so they can, she doesn't have to light separately. Some say more generally that women don't light at all, because if there are men involved, the men light, women don't have to light. There is a widespread custom, women don't light. Some people have the custom, even single women don't light, even women who are single, if they're part of a family or a household, they don't light. Some say only the married women don't light. And in some cases, married women do light. The Mishnah Berurah brings that the exact reasons are not clear. Ishto Kegufo is a curious argument. We don't usually say Ishto Kegufo when it comes to mitzvahs. It's not clear when we say it, when we don't say it. Some say it was a tznius issue, or the time of a modesty issue, or the time of the original takana back in rabbinic times. They lit outside because of kol kfud bas melech panima. It wasn't considered congruent with feminine modesty for the woman to go outside. So certainly, if she's by herself, she has to light. But if it's only a question of mahadran, then they didn't light. So no one knows exactly what the reason is, but there still is a widespread custom in some circles, at least, that women don't light if they're part of a larger household. They certainly have to light when they're by themselves, but they can light if they want. They can, even according to these minhagim, they don't have to light. They can, and in many households, women do light, even if there are husbands. In many households, women still do light. The Abaya says that initially, he used to look for mishcha d'shumshmi. He used to try to find sesame oil to light because he said that it burned better, mashach naratvei. But when he heard Rabbi Shua ben Levi said that he looked for shemen zayis, mishcha d'zeisa, he said that that's a clearer light, so I'm going to use shemen zayis. Tosfos said this is talking about Ner Chanukah because this is talking about Ner Chanukah, because having more light is pursuing Nisa. That was his original svara, that it's better even than oil because it has more light. But for Shabbos, there's no question that you don't need to make the light is not for outside, I guess. The light is just for inside. So certainly shemen zayis mitzvah amufkar because it burns more clearly, it burns better. There's no concern that you'll adjust it. Therefore, for Shabbos, Tosfos says shemen zayis is definitely mitzvah min amufkar because it burns better. That's how the Shulchan Aruch and Achron and Paskin that for Shabbos, the ideal oil to use for your Shabbos candles. Shabbos candles is a misnomer according to this. The ideal thing you should use to light your ner of Shabbos is oil, particularly olive oil. If you don't have olive oil, other oils are better. They're even better than wax, because wax doesn't burn well, and because wax doesn't burn as well apparently, and even wax is better than using chela, but better than using lights made of animal fat. Mishnah Berurah brings that from earlier Achronim, but then he says that it's hard, that you can't really say, this is not an absolute rule, he says. It'll be ha'inyan. Everything depends on the nature of the particular lights you're talking about. Ner shalanu, sterin, he says, our types of lights they used to use, which is very clear, it's certainly clearer than wax. That doesn't have the problem of chaylev, then you're not going to come to adjust it, you're not going to come to chil Shabbos, he says. Then that's great. That's better than wax, he says. It may be even better than oil, better than other oils, because it's not going to, ultimately all we care about is that it should burn clearly. We mentioned earlier with Chanukah, olive oil is preferred because that was the nace of the mikdash, which is what we're doing a remembrance of. But here, it's all about what burns better. So it would seem certainly logically that the Shabbos candles should be lit with whatever burns well, whatever burns clearly. Our candles burn extremely well. They're probably more reliable and more stable than the many types of oil lamps. However, there are some poskim who take a traditionalist view and say the poskim say oil. Poskim talk about a woman who used to use olive oil and wants to switch to candles. Do they need Taras Nedarim? So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu suggests that they do. It's a minhag tov. They should matter neder if they want to switch. They want to switch to candles. Others say that Rav Dov Lior says it's not a minhag. It's just whatever burns better. The poskim say it's fine. You don't need to be matter neder. But many people do use olive oil. Many people do use olive oil, either because it's just traditionalist, because that's what the early poskim said, maybe other reasons involved, but olive oil is common in some, I think, Hasidic and yeshivish circles, although outside that, most people use candles. The Gemara talks about the bracha you make on Ner Chanukah, and it says you make Asher Kiddushon Mitzvah Tzivanu Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah, that's the bracha we make. The Gemara asks, Heichen Tzivanu, where are we commanded to light Ner Chanukah? So the Gemara says, Lo Sasser. Or the pasuk of Shalav Vicha V'Yagetcha, the Torah says, Lo Sasser, you shall not stray from the orders of the rabbis in your generation. So that's Lo Sasser. This is a celebrated machlokes between the Bahag, the Halachos Gedolos, and the Rambam and the Ramban. When the Bahag listed his Taryag mitzvahs, he was one of the first to provide us with an actual enumeration of the Taryag mitzvahs. he counted a number of mitzvahs drabanan that we call drabanan, including Chanukah, Ner Chanukah, and Megillah. Rambam says, no, that's not right. You don't count drabanan. Taryag is only daraisa. Why did the Bahag count Ner Chanukah and Megillah and a number of others? Rambam says because he held that because it says lo saser, because the Gemara says Heichan tzivanu, where are we commanded by lo saser, so the drabanans become daraisas. So they have the status of daraisas. Rambam said it's not correct, even though yes, lo saser is an admonition, is a command to follow the Chachamim, and it is therefore a biblical command. Nevertheless, we do treat mitzvahs drabanan like Chanukah and Megillah as drabanan, and we shouldn't count them as taryag. But the Rambam does say, seems to agree with what he thinks the Bahag holds, that we do count rabbinic mitzvahs as falling under the rubric of lo saser. Ramban strongly disagrees. Ramban says no. If rabbinic mitzvahs are backed by lo saser, there would be daraisa. If there would be daraisa, they wouldn't have any leniencies. He goes through all over Shas. We find various leniencies in mitzvahs drabanan. We say that Safed Drabanan Lakula can be more lenient in a case of doubt about a Drabanan. He lists a variety of other leniencies that we say that we can be much more lenient, but Divrei Sofrim, in terms of credibility, we rely on minors for certain things. B'dikas Chametz, he says. B'dikas Chametz is a mitzvah Drabanan, and they trusted Ketanim, the Gemara says. You see, in general, Chazal are much more lenient about Drabanan, so they're obviously not backed by Lo Saser. So the Achronim, the Rishonim even, the Achronim explain the Rambam Shita. The Rambam says technically they are deraisa, and you violated deraisa if you do them. But the Rabbanim themselves established the rule that you could be lenient in cases of safek, or they had lower standards of credibility. The Rabbanim made them up. So hey mamru, the Rabbanim said that we want to make the standards somewhat looser than deraisa. But in principle, in terms of the actual severity of the avera, if you violated Rabbanim according to the Rambam, you are violating. You get an avera deraisa, a biblical transgression of lo sasa. Daf Chavdala, the Gemara talks about, Gemara brings up a question, do you have to mention Chanukah in Berchas HaMazon? In Tefillah, apparently you do. The question is, what about in benching? Do you have to mention Chanukah? It's only Drabanan, maybe not, the Gemara says. The Gemara goes, pursue Minisa, it's important. The Gemara goes back and forth. The halacha, of course, is that we do mention Chanukah in Berchas HaMazon. The Gemara says which bracha. The Gemara talks about what bracha you say it in. So Hoda, we say it in the bracha of No Delacha. Someone wanted to say it in Bnei Yerushalayim, but we paskin, of course, Hoda. That's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. We say Al Hanisim. That's called mentioning Chanukah in Berchas HaMazon, in Berchas Haaretz, the second bracha, No Delacha, and in Tefillah, in Shemon Esrei, we say it in Berchas Modim. That's when you say Al Hanisim, because Chanukah is all about Hoda. The poskim explain that it's all about thanking Hashem for the Nisim. And you do not say it in bracha mei and shalosh, in the alamichya, ala-eitz, ala-gafen. Those brachas we don't mention Chanukah or Purim. They're not ma'akev. If you forgot al-nisim, you don't have to go back because they're not deraisa. So even though the Gemara concludes you should say them, they're not deraisa. So they didn't make you go back, neither in Shemon Esrei nor in Berchas HaMazon. However, before you said Hashem's name, you just said Baruch Atah and didn't say Hashem's name. Then you do go back and say al-nisim. Rama brings that there's an opinion that if you forgot al-nisim in Berchas HaMazon, there is a makeup. You have a second chance. When you get to the Harachamans, you say Harachaman Yaslan Nisim. We ask Hashem, please perform miracles for us, for the flows, as you did. K'mosha Sisal Hashem Shasisal Avosenu. Then you say so you can say that if you forgot it in the primary place in Berchas Haaretz, you can say it later. Musaf, the Gemara has a question about saying Al Hanisim in Musaf, since Musaf is really a Shabbos tefillah. That maybe you don't say it. The Gemara concludes, no. Yom Mushin is Chaya Ba'arba Tfilos. The day has 4 Tfilos. The day is Chanukah. So Chanukah goes in all 4 Tfilos, even Musaf. That is how we pass it. Daf Chafei. The Gemara says, Hadlakas Ner B'Shabbos Chova. Lighting a Ner Shabbos is a Chova. It's an obligation. It doesn't use the word mitzvah. Some say Chova is less than mitzvah. Tosas brings an opinion that it's only a Chova, so you don't make a bracha on it. The Gemara doesn't talk about a bracha on Ner Shel Shabbos. But Tosas rejects that. The halacha, of course, is that we do make a bracha of lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. Why? What is the point of lighting? What is the chova? What is the mitzvah of ner Shabbos? The Rashi says kavod Shabbosu, because a suda is only a proper meal when you have light. Tosas also says the Gemara is talking specifically about the ner for the suda. There are other sources for needing a ner in Shabbos in general, but this is talking about the ner of the suda. So the suda needs a ner. The Shabbos meal needs a ner. The Gemara goes on. As a matter of fact, it talks about another reason to have a ner. The Gemara says, "But tis nach mishalom nafshi." Nashifi tova, I did not have shalom, I had no peace. Zu had lachas ner Shabbos. If you don't have ner Shabbos, you don't have shalom. Rashi explains that the person who was lamenting this said he didn't have a ner. and there's no shalom because he trips and he bumps, holich v'nichshel v'holich ba'afela, it's dark and it's not pleasant and he trips over things. This is what the post can bring, that Ner Shabbos is because of shalom bias. The Mishnah Berurah actually rules that even though Tosfos and Rashi said that the original Gemara, Ner Shabbos Chova, is talking about the Makom Suda, where you eat, there's also an obligation to have a Ner in any room that you're going to use on Shabbos night. That even if you're not eating there, you have to have at least one Ner in every room that you plan to use. Why? So you shouldn't trip. Like Rashi said, you shouldn't trip over stuff. So you have to have a Neros in any room that you use. The bracha you make on the Ner, the primary Ner, the Ner that has the bracha is the bracha in the dining room, wherever you're going to eat. But you should have a Ner in all the other rooms that you're going to use. Many of the poskim discuss the question of whether today, when we have electric lighting, whether you can make a bracha if you also light a candle. Candle doesn't really add anything. Some poskim say you can because the candle adds some light, or because the candle is covered, the candle adds a kind of festive atmosphere. But many poskim say you should not. Many poskim say, especially Sfardim have a stricter standard in general in this area. The Ramah talks about whether two people can light neros in the same room and make a bracha. The Ramah says yes, because each ner adds something. Even if each ner adds, a candle with an electric light might not add anything, but certainly the Sfardim don't even accept that, don't even accept that two women can light and make a bracha in the same room. So many poskim say, especially Sfardim, that you really should not make the bracha if there's light in the room. Rav Avadia says you should turn off the lights electric lights before you make the bracha on the Shabbos candles. On Yom Tov, when you can turn off the lights, or Avadia says you should have the electric lights on a timer before Shabbos to go off on Yom Tov. When you're going to light candles, when let's say there's a 2-day Yom Tov, or Shabbos falls after Yom Tov, you should have a timer turning off the light on the first day of Yom Tov to be able to light the candles for Shabbos when it's actually dark in the room. The other poskim say this. Rav Soloveitchik is quoted as having said that l'chatchila at least women should turn off the electric light before they light the candles. And Rav Daniel Lustat brings even further. He brings that not only in the dining room should you turn off the light, because as we saw, the Mishnah Berurah rules, poskim rule that that there's a mitzvah of lighting Ner Shabbos in all the rooms because of not tripping. You have to have some light in all the rooms. We rely on electric lighting. We don't light candles in our bedrooms. We typically rely on night lights or bathroom lights, the hallway lights, or the some light wherever you go. But that light is a mitzvah of Halachos Ner Shabbos. So what you should really do, l'chatchila, is you should turn off all the lights that you're going to be relying on for Shabbos night, both the light in the dining room as well as any lights that you're going to give you lights in the bedrooms and so on. Then you make the bracha and you light the candles in the dining room, and then you also turn on, either the woman herself or her husband or someone else turns on all the lights, and all those lights are lighting Halachos Ner Shabbos, and he turns on all the lights, and the bracha goes on all of them. On Daf Chavav, the Gemara says certain types of things should not be used for lighting because they're flammable. They can cause unfortunate conflagrations. Sorry, the Gemara says two reasons you shouldn't use it. One of them is because because it's flammable, it catches fire. Rashi says it sticks to the walls and the house catches on fire. Similarly, the Gemara goes on and it says, when it talks about neft lavan, another type of flammable material, it says you shouldn't use it b'chol, and certainly not on Shabbos. Even during the week you shouldn't use it. Why? Because it has this dangerous flammable quality. So what exactly is the problem? So there are three different explanations of these cases in the Rishon. Tosfos says, Yehi bohol al mamono v'yavel l'chabos. If stuff is catching fire, he's going to be so concerned about his house burning down, he's going to be machal Shabbos to put out the fire, so it's going to cause chilul Shabbos. The Rambam in the Yad HaChazaka in Halachos Shabbos says the problem is it's dangerous. A third reason, the Rambam Pirush Mishnayos gives a different reason. The Rambam Pirush Mishnayos says that it will catch fire and cause problems, and you're going to leave the house. You're going to leave the house, and you're not going to have the Ner Shabbos. The Rambam says in general, it's a chiyuv that you be in the room that has the Ner Shabbos. That Shema Yanichenu, that's something that smells bad, you'll abandon the Ner, and Choval of Leishiv Lar Ner, you have to sit by the Ner. So the Rambam says that the things that catch fire, you'll just abandon the Ner because they catch fire and you'll leave. So either the problem is you will have not fulfilled the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos, you'll abandon the Ner, or the problem is you'll be Machal Shabbos by putting out the fire, or the problem is that it's dangerous and Chazal don't want you to be in danger. With regard to the chilul Shabbos reason, the Magen Avraham says you shouldn't do other things that can cause chilul Shabbos. He says there was a custom that they would cover up the mouth of the oven, they would block it up with wood, and apparently that could catch on fire sometimes, and people would then rush to put it out. Kama Pa'amim, Magen Avraham says, many times I saw people had chilul Shabbos because of this. And the obvious reason is because it's dangerous, and it can cause sakana. Chazal were worried. It's not brought in Shulchan Aruch, this thing, but this thing about sakana. But Chazal were worried. Certainly, a person shouldn't do things. The Torah was worried. The Torah says build a fence around the roof. certainly relevant in the time of coronavirus, when public health officials tell you, don't do this because it's dangerous, you can risk your life and the lives of others. It's not just good advice from the state and from the medical establishment. It becomes halacha too. Halacha does not allow you to do things that put the lives of yourself and others in danger. Daf Shabbos, the Gemara talks about tzitzis. The Gemara says that tzitzis, the Gemara brings an opinion that tzitzis, you're only chayav if it is temru pishtim, only wool and linen garments are chayav in tzitzis. Tzitzis b'hadyiksiv, it's a pasuk the Gemara says, lo sil b'shatnei temru pishtim yachta. In the context of Kilayim, it says, don't wear shatneis made of temru pishtim. And right after that, gedilim tasel, that you should wear tzitzis. Tzitzis only applies to garments of wool and linen. The Gemara says, not so simple. There is a sheet of Rava. Rava says that all garments are chayav. So the first opinion says only temru pishtim. The second opinion, Rava says all garments. This is also a debate in Menachos. How do we paskin? Are all garments chayav or only wool and linen? Shulchan Aruch says ein chayav b'tzitzis iminatara ela beged pishtim mishal tzemer chelim, only wool and linen. Other garments, the Shulchan Aruch says, are only midrabanan. They're chayav, they are chayav, but only midrabanan, not midaraisa. The Gemara's debate is about daraisa. Midrabanan, everyone agrees that they're chayav. The Ramah says yesham, no, yesham we pass like the first, like the second opinion, like Rava's opinion, that everything is chayav, not just temer pishtim. So there's machlokes rishonim, machlokas, Mechaber and Ramah, how we paskin whether other garments are chayav midaraisa or not. It's not obvious what the nafkamina would be. Everyone agrees if you have a garment of other materials, you do put on tzitzis, and it is a mitzvah midrabanan, you do make a bracha. So what's a nafkamina? Mishnah Berurah says there are three nafkaminas between the two opinions, whether it's deraisa or drabanan. First, he says ideally one should try to fulfill the mitzvah in a deraisa way. So ideally one should get a garment of temer pishtim. Second, he says when sfeikas come up, when questions of doubt arise, if it's only drabanan, you can be more lenient. If it's deraisa, you have to be more stringent, as we said earlier. Third, if a person's tzitzis become puzzled, they become ripped. So do you have to strip the beged off? It can be embarrassing. It can be humiliating to do it in public. On the other hand, you're violating a mitzvah. You're wearing a garment that needs tzitzis and doesn't have them. So there's a rule we had back in brachas that covered abrios. The concern for human dignity is docha a mitzvah drabanan. It's not docha daraisa. So if it's drabanan, you can say, okay, it's only mitzvah drabanan and it's covered abrios, so I can keep wearing it. Not if it's daraisa. How do we paskin? So the Ramah says, Hachi Hilchasa, that we paskin that all garments are chayav midaraisa. And however, the Mishnah Berurah says, a Yarei Shemayim should be machmer also like the first shita. That should be machmer that if he's not wearing temeru pishtim, if he's not wearing wool or linen, he's not yet to the mitzvah midaraisa. So ideally, a person who wants to do the right thing and wants to follow, he's a Yarei Shemayim, he wants to get a mitzvah tzitzis midaraisa, he should wear a tzitzis only of wool, not cotton, not polyester, not anything else. And that applies both to the talis gadol that you wear in shul as well as to the talis katan that we wear constantly. Rav Moshe has a well-known tshuva. They asked him about, do you have to wear a woolen talis katan even during the summer when it's very hot? Rav Moshe urges strongly yes. Now, it doesn't say strictly that you're obligated to, but he says it's better even in the summer to wear a woolen talis katan. That's what I do, he says, b'chein ani noheg, because even though it's not an obligation to wear tzitzis, you don't have to wear any tzitzis at all, but the Gemara does say that a person can be punished for not trying to fulfill a mitzvah if he can, and that applies even to fulfilling it on a deraisa level. Rav Moshe therefore strongly recommends, even if it's hot, the person should try to wear a talis katan of wool specifically. They do sell, many people do wear cotton and other materials of talis katans, but ideally, if one can, one should try to wear even a talis katan of wool. The Gemara brings another rule about tzitzis. Re'isa mosa. The Torah says you have to see the tzitzis. Pratlixis laila. Doesn't apply to garments you wear at night. So there's a major machlokes rishonim. The Shulchan Aruch brings the Rambam and the Rush. The Rambam says the question is, what time is it right now that you're wearing it? Right now, if it's nighttime, you don't need to have tzitzis, even if you're wearing your daytime garments, your the same clothes you wore during the day. If it's right now, it's nighttime, you don't have to wear it. So according to the Rambam, once it's night, you might as well take off your talis katan or your talis gadol. You're not mekayim any mitzvah, and vice versa. Also, according to the Rambam, even if it's pajamas that you normally wear only at night, if you sleep late and you're wearing your pajamas during the day, they would have to have tzitzis. Even if they're a four-cornered garment, they would have to have tzitzis, even though they are night clothing. The Rush says it doesn't depend on what time it actually is right now. It depends on whether it's a day garment or a night garment. A day garment, a ksis yom, is chayav and tzitzis even if you wear it at night. And vice versa, a night garment is patur from tzitzis even if you wear it during the day. Mishnah Berurah says, "Sali brachos lahakel." So if a person should only make a bracha if both conditions are met, if right now it is during the day and the garment he's wearing is a day garment. So we don't make a bracha and after it's nightfall, or even after you daven Marav, even if you daven Marav early, Erev Shabbos, let's say, even if it's before Shkia, you don't make a bracha once you daven Marav. In various areas of Halacha, once you daven Marav, we treat it somewhat as the next day. Like Yom Kippur, we put on a talis for Ne'ilah, so then you should make sure to put it on before nightfall, because you won't be able to make a bracha after once it becomes night. Mishmur brings, however, a Shliach Tzibur should always wear a talis. Some say even someone saying Kaddish Yasmul Fnei HaTeva. In some places, the person saying Kaddish, even if he's not dying for the Amud, goes to the Teva to say Kaddish. Even he should wear a talis. The reason is covered at Tzibur. Covered at Tzibur. So the Mishmur seems to say that someone who goes L'fnei HaTeva, someone who's a Shliach Tzibur should wear a talis because he's covered at Tzibur even at night, and that would seem to imply even Marav. Some places they wear it only for Mincha and not for Marav. Al Pi Kabbalah, they bring from the Arizal that Arizal was very opposed for Kabbalistic reasons not to wear a talis after Shkia. So there are different customs about whether a talis is worn by a Shliach Tzibur when he's davening Marav, when he's davening during the night. Except for Yom Kippur, the Mishmur brings, there is a widespread custom to be dama to Malachim, like the angels, that even after Shliach Tzibur, everyone wears a talis well until the night. We wear it from Ne'ilah until after Marav.